Okay, as a little bit of review, you can look to the right of this line right here, and you can remember what the rules are that we spoke about yesterday with regards to odd and even functions. So I usually like to start by finding f of negative x. So everywhere I see an x, I'm going to replace it with a negative x. Raise that to the fourth power. Take that negative x, raise it to the second. I'm going to subtract a negative x, and then minus 5. Okay, so when we keep going with this, and we simplify this, what's going to end up happening is, remember, an even power. If we have a negative number raised to an even power, that will make that positive. So that's 3x to the fourth. Another even. So we have x squared. And now here we have a negative to a negative. I'm sorry, minus a negative. So that's going to make that a positive x. And then we have minus 5. And if you compare this with the original function, you'll see that they're not the same. So the function is not even. Now to do odd, what we're going to do is we're going to do negative f of x. Now to do negative f of x, you just take the original function that I have up here at the top in red, and all you're going to do is just negate all of the signs. So negative 3x to the fourth minus x squared plus x, and then plus 5. And if you're comparing to see whether something is odd, you would be comparing. When you compare these two, you can see that they're not the same. So this function is not odd, it's not even, so your answer is neither, which would be choice C. Number 2 is asking us to find the roots. Now remember, roots are the same things as zeros, which are the same things as solutions. So with this one, I'm looking at the 4 multiple choice answers, and I see the last two look kind of like the quadratic formula. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the quadratic formula. So we're going to do, remember that here we have A is 4, B is 14, and C is negative 6. So I'm going to do x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared, and 14 squared is 196, minus 4 times negative 6. And then that whole value is over 2 times a. And since a is 4, 2 times a would be 8. Now over here, I'm going to look at that, and I see that I have 4 times negative 6. And then I have a minus in front of that first 4. So I know that I'm going to be doing 196 plus. And when I do 4 times 6, I get that value, and I'm going to add it to 196. And so that's going to end up being 292. Okay, so then what I have is x equals negative 14 plus or minus. Now I want to break that 292 down into two numbers that multiply to 292, and one of them is a perfect square. So what I picked was, I picked 4 and 73. And remember here, 4 is your perfect square, so that's going to become a 2. And then from there, I'm just going to shoot this actually off to the side over here. So I would have negative 14 plus or minus 2 radical 73, and that whole quantity is over 8. Now remember, if you see something that the factors that the numbers all have in common, you can factor out or you can divide out that number. So for example here, I have a 2 that goes into all 3 of these things. So that's going to become a 1, this will become a negative 7, and this will become a 4. So then my final answer for this will be x equals, my pen doesn't seem to want to work today, I'm sorry, negative 7 plus or minus. Now you can write 1 radical 73. I'm just going to write radical 73 though. And that whole quantity is over 4. Then you're going to look at your multiple choice answers and you'll see that that's choice C. Number 3 is asking for the zeros. So basically what you're going to do is, well, you can look at this 2 ways if you so choose. We do see that we have x minus 3 and that quantity is squared. So if you wanted to, you could write it like this. It's not necessary. And there's your f of x in factored form. And then remember, to find the zeros, you're going to do your little t-chart. Okay? And we're going to end up with x equals 0, x equals 3. Now we have x equals 3 again. We don't need to write it twice. I'm just showing you what the x minus 3, that quantity squared, means. And x equals 5. So your 3 zeros are 5, 3, and 0. And if you look at your 3 choices, or your 4 choices rather, you'll see that that's choice C. With number 4, they're asking for the zeros just like number 3 of the polynomial function. So what I did was I just went straight to my calculator, I went into my y equals, I typed it in, and I did a zoom 6, and I got myself a graph. So my first 0 was at -4, my second one was at -1, my third one was at 0, and my fourth one was at 2. So your picture looked like this. I'm not an artist, so use your imagination on that one. Okay, so there's p of x right there. Now, what they wanted to know was what were the zeros. So, well, here they are right here. So we have x equals -4. We have x equals -1. We have x equals 0, and lastly, we have x equals 2. Last question for your homework. So for this one, they want you to factor. And I look through the 12, the 36, the 24, and the -6, and I see that we have a common factor, I should say, of 6. So I'm going to take out a 6. I also see that all 4 of those terms have a y, and I see that they also have a z. Now just be very careful when you're doing the rest of this. So when I divide out, I'm going to get 2 x cubed. Then I'm going to squared because I am factoring out a y. And then I'm going to get z to the 3rd. Then minus 6. I'm going to go y to the 4th because, again, I'm factoring out a y. And then z squared, again, because I'm factoring out a z. Then I have plus 4 x cubed. There's no x's in common, so we just drop that down. And then when I take out a y, the y will cancel out and become 1. And if I take out a z, I still have a z left. Now be careful here at the end. If I divide this -6yz by 6yz, I am left with -1. And there's your answer.